Hi, friends. Welcome to another edition of the Lovecast. You are listening to episode 118, and this one is entitled Impregnable Immunity Against the Virulent Virus of Victimhood. Let me repeat that one. This episode is episode 118, which is titled Impregnable Immunity Against the Virulent Virus of Victimhood. Okay, guys, what a mouthful, huh? Yeah, I had some fun with that title. Impregnable Immunity Against the Virulent Virus of Victimhood. Okay, so as you may have guessed, I want to talk about boosting your immunity today against a very, very destructive virus that's been spreading in our culture for quite some time now, okay? And especially in this season. And no, I'm not talking about that virus. I'm talking about the virus behind that virus that the current virus seems to exacerbate, okay? This is the current virus of victimhood, okay? So we want to talk about how do we get immune? How do we strengthen our immunity against the virulent virus of victimhood? Okay, because that's the more deadly virus that I believe we are seeing come to the surface now, and I really feel, and it's kind of a cute title, but it's a very serious topic. So I want to share really three things with you today, okay, that will, I believe, and I know, will be very helpful to some of you listening to this podcast, okay? Because victimhood is by far, it's a virus that could destroy your life in many ways, both in, mentally, with mental health. It could destroy your mental health. It can destroy your emotional health. It can destroy relationships, and it could even lead to disease, and oftentimes does. This is my understanding and belief in that. So we really want to tackle this dreaded thing of victimhood, this virus of victimhood, okay? It's very virulent, this virus of victimhood. Okay, so with that said, I'll just say, first of all, thank you again for all of you who listen to this podcast and let me know that it speaks to you. That really, I love to have dialogue with listeners, and I really believe that this podcast is important, especially in this season. And my hope as you listen to this would be of service to you. So really be of help to you. Okay. So I want to share these three things. These are the three things that I'm going to share are going to really help us boost our immunity to this condition of victimhood. Okay. And not only do these three things will help you with the victimhood virus, these three things will help you if you struggle with depression. Yes, if you struggle with depression. Now, I want to say this because when I share this, sometimes I get in a bit of trouble with people because, and I recently had an exchange online with a lady who basically listened to a video that I recorded, and she just said, her opinion was that that what I shared, because I talked about and I'm going to touch on it here in this podcast, but I talked about that depressed people who struggle with depression typically have very predictable thought patterns, and this has been demonstrated in a number of studies on folks who struggle with clinical and chronic depression, is that they actually have certain thought patterns that are consistent, which is pretty amazing. And they've also been able to determine in a number of people that when these thought patterns are shifted, when you move out of these thought patterns, that even clinical depression, as far as which is your brain produces serotonin, it's a chemical in the brain, and when your serotonin levels drop below a certain level, you become clinically depressed. So you're not supposed to dump serotonin levels into your bloodstream. That's what happens when you're in a stressed state, when you're in a fight or flight state. The adrenal response is engaged, and serotonin is used for that response, but that's how you get your serotonin levels depleted. It's one way. There's many other ways, but that's one way your serotonin levels get depleted. So folks who have been able to shift their thinking in these three areas that I'm going to share with you in this podcast, they actually start producing serotonin in their brain, and they're able to raise their levels of serotonin to a certain degree where they do not need, where they come out of clinical depression which is fantastic. Okay. Now, sometimes I get pushback from this. And I typically get pushback from people who have struggled with depression and who continue to struggle with depression. And a number of people have just said, Jamal, this is very cruel to suggest that somebody can just change their thinking patterns and they can just overcome depression. And I understand that, because a lot of times people feel very much victimized by depression, by that state. It could be very hard to snap out of it. And I understand that, totally get it. And that's why sometimes people do need to be medicated. It's just my understanding of it. Sometimes people need to be medicated to help get the levels up, and then they can address the root issues of the depression, which is the thinking patterns that leads to, internal healing and a lot of internal processing. But once people can do that, they're able to actually overcome their depression, which is pretty incredible. So I get pushback sometimes from people because they are in the midst of depression, or they have struggled with depression, and they feel like the advice that I'm giving on that end is very insensitive. And so I always tell people, hey, just a disclaimer here, and I'm going to talk about that today. These 3 thought patterns not only protect you against the virus of victimhood, but they also help you if you struggle with depression or anxiety, okay? These will help. But I'm going to tell you, if you don't like what I'm saying, it's totally fine. Like, if you disagree with this method that I'm going to share with you, it's totally fine. And I tell people who push back against it, say, hey, look, if your approach to depression and anxiety is working for you, then keep doing it. But you know what I've found to be the case? There's no judgment in this, just an observation. The people who disagree with me and push back against this method that I'm going to share with you today are folks who struggle with depression and have not overcome it. They continue to struggle. And so it's kind of perplexing to me, but I understand it. I get it, because they feel in some ways that they're not doing something right, or kind of triggers them. But my thing is this: if I have struggled with depression and anxiety myself, I've had both, and I've overcome it. Doesn't mean I don't have challenges still, but I have overcome these issues. And I speak from my own experience at this. And also, obviously, I'm a life coach. I work with people who struggle with depression and anxiety on occasion, and these have been this 3-step process has been extremely valuable to folks. So, look, if I struggled with depression, I would not be giving advice to somebody who has overcome depression, telling them they're wrong. That's just something I wouldn't do. I wouldn't say, hey, I know your strategy works for you, but you're wrong. It doesn't work for everybody. Because the folks who tell me that don't do it. They don't employ this strategy. If your strategy is working for you, then follow it. But if it's not working for you, don't critique my strategy that does work for me and works for lots of other people. Just interesting. I feel like I need to say that because, a lot of the folks that push back against us themselves, they say, I've struggled with depression for 20 years. Your philosophy here is dangerous. And I go, well, but you're still struggling with depression. So whatever advice you're following isn't working. I always say if it's not working for you, then you might want to be open to an approach that goes, that's helpful. You might be open to that approach if it's not working for you. It kind of baffles me a little bit, but I get it. I totally understand. So the reason I think, and I'm going to get to these 3 things. I want to share them with you. But the reason I think that a lot of folks are not open to what I'm about to share with you is because I think, honestly, a lot of people, and this is what I've come to discover. I wish it wasn't so, but I believe a lot of people feel very attached to their identity as a victim. Yeah. I think a lot of people feel very attached to their identity as a victim. And they're so identified with their identity as a victim that when you suggest that they can change or shift out of the victim mindset, it feels to them that you're invalidating their pain and suffering. Yeah. And not only that, not only does it feel like that to them, they've so identified with the struggle, and we've all known people like this. I know if you're listening to this, you know people like this. They have so identified with the struggle for so long that it actually becomes their identity. That they can't even, this is not always conscious, it can be unconscious. They are so unconsciously identified with the struggle that to lose their struggle would be to lose their own personality. Yeah, and that's scary because maybe they've actually built an entire reputation and sometimes even career off of being a victim, being angry. We know that, we all know people who are chronically angry, right? Yeah, that's an egoic construct. They're chronically angry. They're chronically a victim. They've learned to receive love. Yeah, they've even learned to receive love and attention through their victimhood. Their mindset of a victim. They've learned to receive love and attention through that. Now, it doesn't serve them well because being a victim is suffering. There's a lot of misery in that. But in some ways, people are so identified with it that they will actually get very angry when you suggest that they change or that they can change and break free from it. They don't want that because that's a loss of identity for some people. Now, again, this message is not for those folks. And sometimes I recognize it's a timing thing. Everybody has to go through. I've lived personally. I'm not speaking as one who hasn't suffered from this. I have lived many years of my life unconsciously aligning myself with a victim, with a victim mindset, somebody who isn't heard, somebody who isn't appreciated, someone who isn't whatever the narrative is. I've adopted it, and I learned to build an entire persona for many years around this idea that I'm a victim who is being victimized. And it made me angry, and I got a lot of certainty out of it. It got a lot of energy from it for a while. Yeah, but eventually it did a number on me. It ruined a lot of relationships. Yep. It kept me stuck from advancement. I could not advance and move into my highest calling and work because of my victim mindset. And not only that, it did a number on my physical health. Yeah, let me say that again. It did a number on my physical health. And eventually I realized that this victim mindset was costing me more than I was receiving from it. And that's when I got serious about breaking free, not being right, and validating my victim stance. But I got very desperate to break free of that mindset because I was paying a heavy price in just about every way, financially, health-wise, and relationally. It was costly. This virulent virus of victimhood is very, very costly. Okay, so we want to shed it. There's a pandemic going on of the virus of victimhood. So let's build our immunity against it. Okay, and so we can move out of it and move into health. All right, shall we do that? Okay, are you ready for these 3 steps? 3 easy steps that will shift us out of the virulent virus of victim. Are you ready? Okay, step number 1. And this is also going to help us with depression and anxiety. Okay, step number 1. Step number 1 is this. People who have the virulent virus of victimhood focus on what they have no control over. Yeah. Can you relate to that? They focus on what they have absolutely no control over. Depressed folks, anxious folks, they obsess. Their mind is, they're constantly engaging thoughts about things they have no control over. Okay? So to impregnate or to make your immunity impregnable against this virulent virus of victimhood, yeah, you need to shift that. Okay, you need to shift that and focus. So folks who these studies have done, that folks who only engage thoughts that focus on what they have control over, what they do have control over, shifts them out of the state of victimhood. So victims focus on what they have no control over, And again, with this pandemic that we're seeing in the media, there's a lot that we don't have control over. And people are affected by that. And so they focus on it, and this creates a sense of powerlessness, which, can really trigger can trigger anxiety and also a sense of victimhood, okay? So they focus on what they have no control over. This can either make you afraid or it can make you very angry. So victimhood, the virus of victimhood manifests in many areas, not just with this current virus, but even with our social order and what things are happening. So a lot of folks feel powerless. They feel like a victim, and then that can create a fight, which is a rage response, or a flight, which is a fear response. So we see the media in our country doing both. They're really playing on this sense of victimhood, causing fight or flight. Okay, so folks who struggle with this typically have, in their thought process, they focus on what they have no control over. But in studies with people who struggle with depression, when they can shift their mindset from focusing on what they have no control over to only engaging thoughts about things they have control over, when they learn how to do this, and there's a process. I mean, you have to learn how to do it. It takes practice. And in some of my coaching work that I help, I have some modalities and practices that help with that. But when somebody can shift their thinking from things they have no control over to only things they have control over, and your mind can get conditioned to think about thoughts you only have control over. Just like your mind can get conditioned to think about thoughts you have no control over. It's all about conditioning. So the beautiful thing with conditioning is you can be reconditioned. Okay. So when we can recondition our thoughts from focusing on things that we do have control over, as opposed to things we don't have control over, you begin to build your immunity against the virulent virus of victimhood. Okay. Step one. Step number two. Okay. Step number two in building our impregnable immunity against the virulent virus of victimhood is that people who struggle with depression and anxiety tend to focus on things they think they need, but they don't have. Okay? So they focus on things they don't have. So if you want to, boost your immunity against the virulent virus of victimhood, you have to shift that in step two from thinking about things you feel like you need that you don't have to only focusing on what you do have that you're thankful for. Yeah, can I say that again? When folks who have struggled with clinical depression shift from focusing on things they don't have or think that they don't have and need to thinking about the things they currently have and feel grateful for, you literally shift out of that state of being a victim, and it helps with anxiety and depression. When you focus, we've heard it, an attitude of gratitude, but being focused on things we do have as opposed to things we think we need and don't have. This will have a tremendous effect on our state of being. Yeah, this is not like rocket science, right? I'm sure you've heard of this. This is but there have been so many studies done that show dramatically, even at a brain function level, what this will do to your serotonin levels when you shift from thinking about things you don't have control over to things you only have control over, and shift from thinking what you think you don't have and need to thinking about the things you do have and are grateful for. Tremendous effects on our mental and then eventually physical health as well. Incredible. It's incredible. All right. So that's step two. All right. Isn't this good? Yeah, it's very practical. Focusing on what sometimes I'll have a thought come into my mind and I'll go, do I have control over that thought? Do I have any control over what I'm thinking about? If the answer is no, I just observe it. I surrender to it. I just accept it. Okay. I have no control over that. I accept it. Yeah. And one of the things you can do to just accept something is, I always like to tell people, there's like a 0 point of acceptance. So find something that's easy to accept. So one of the things that's easy to accept is the day of the week. So you might be listening to this and it's a Tuesday, right? So you can just say to yourself, yeah, it's Tuesday. Yeah, I accept that. It's Tuesday. No judgment. I'm not resisting that. Yeah, it's Tuesday. So I just say it. It's Tuesday. You can feel it in your body. No resistance. That's what it feels like to accept something. No resistance. It's just an acknowledgement of what is. It's Tuesday. And I may say, yeah, it's Tuesday and there's a lot of fear in the world right now. Yeah, it's Tuesday and a lot of people are afraid. I accept that. I don't resist that. It's just the way it is right now. Totally accept it. See, so when there's a thought about something I have no control over, I just accept it and I don't engage it. Now, if there is something I do have control over, then I can think about that. That makes me feel empowered because there's things I can do. Okay. So when people can focus on what they do have control over, and when people think about what they do have that they're grateful for, as opposed to what they think they lack, yeah, we start to build our immunity against the virulent virus of victimhood. Yeah, isn't that good news? Okay, step 3. This will be the last step I share with you today. Step 3 is this. When depressed people, anxious people, people with the victimhood virus tend to focus a lot on trauma from the past, or they worry about the future, okay? They worry about the future, which is really just a repetition of the past repeating itself into the future. That's what people who tend to struggle with depression and anxiety, they are always afraid of some future as if the future exists out there and it's coming for us to terrorize us, okay? So people who can shift out of that, change their thought patterns from thinking about the past that they have not resolved or the future that they're afraid of, and they start focusing on the present tense. What is happening right now? They begin to enjoy their life right now. Because let's just be honest. What is there not to enjoy right now? Yeah. What is there to not to enjoy right now? There's so much we have to enjoy, right? You're alive. I mean, if you're listening to this, you are alive. Can you feel the beauty of that? Don't dismiss that. There's such beauty in day-to-day living. You have a home. You have an ability to listen to this podcast. Your needs are taken care of. You have food to eat. Your survival is taken care of. You have thoughts. People know about you. People love you. You are present. There's so much to be grateful for. Your health. Yeah, you may have other things going wrong in your body, but what's going right in your body? There's so much you have to enjoy and be thankful for in this moment. You can focus. There's a lot of things unfolding. Actually, the future, all the future is the unfolding of the present moment. So you're creating the future right now. So be conscious of what's happening in the present, because if you're focused on the future that you're afraid of and you're not present with your life, then the future you're building is profoundly created in this vacuum of fear. Because you're the only one that creates the future. You are creating the future. You are creating the world that you experience. There's a guy by the name of Dr. Joe Dispenza, which has this. This is a statement from him that says, "Your personality manifests your personal reality." Yeah, how you are in the present moment is creating your reality, and that it creates the future. Okay, so when you can change your focus from being, stuck on things that have happened in the past, and that's usually because we haven't processed trauma, or when we're projecting those traumas into our future and we're worried about the future that doesn't exist. But when we're focused and worried about the future, we are not present with our life. So when people stop focusing on the past or the future and they get profoundly present with their life, life becomes very enjoyable. And I always tell people this: no problems exist in the present moment. Nobody has problems in the present moment. All problems have a future quality. Think about it. Think about every problem you have right now. It's in your mind, and it has something to do with an unknown about the future or a perception of the future. That's all problems are. Very rarely are they present. If they're present, they're challenges, but you're overcoming the challenge in the present. Whatever's present, you can overcome and respond to. Yeah, isn't that good news? You don't have any problems. Just tell somebody today. Once you're done with this podcast, tell somebody today, I don't have any problems. Neither do you. Yeah, just tell them. It may not go over well. If somebody has the virulent virus of victimhood, they may not like to hear that. Like, what do you mean I don't have any problems? Let me tell you about all the problems I have, and they'll just go on and on. But, yeah, we don't have any problems. Not in the present. So here are those are the three steps. Focus on things that you have control over. Focus on things that you have. Focus on the present moment. And if you do those three things, you will make your immunity impregnable against the virulent virus of victimhood that is spreading, okay? So today, for your own health, let me encourage you. What are the things that you have direct control over? Yeah, focus on that. And let it go. Let everything go. Just let it go. Just like Frozen, right? Disney Frozen. Just let it go. Just let everything go that you have no control over. Just let it go. Can you do it? Just practice this as you're listening to this. Open your hands. Just let your hands open. Okay? Just open it. Do it as you're listening to this. Just open your hands and breathe. Just exhale. And as you exhale, let go of everything you have no control over. Just do it. I'm going to do it with you, okay? 1, 2, 3. Just let it go. Yeah, doesn't that feel good? Doesn't that feel good? Just open your hands and you let go everything that you have no control over. Just let it go. Now, step 2, let's think about what you have. What do you have right now that you're thankful for? Yeah, just take an inventory, mental inventory. 3 things right now. Just think of 3 things that you absolutely are just so grateful that they're in your life right now. 3 things. 3 things. Maybe they're people. Maybe they're just things you have or situations, whatever they are. Just think about 3 things. Yeah. Isn't that good? Yeah, you're fortunate, aren't you? Yeah. It's just good to be reminded of. And think about the present moment. How good does it feel to have no problems right now? How good does it feel to have no problems right now? It's fantastic. Yeah. You may want to listen to this one again. Just saying. May want to listen to this one again. And we can all do these 3 things. It'll do wonders for your depression. Do this consistently every day, multiple times a day. What's depression? Anxiety? Why? Now, I know I'm being very simplistic here. I know that this can be a big struggle for a lot of folks, and I get it. I've been there. I understand. I'm not saying that from a flippant place. But I know it's possible. I know you're capable of overcoming this. Let us, ladies and gentlemen, build and make our immunity impregnable against the virulent virus of victimhood. All right? Until next time. We'll talk to you soon. Guys, I have some big news that I'm announcing soon. On my database, so I would love for you to get in my email database so I can send you an email about some cool things that are happening very soon. So if you are not on my email database, please go to my website, JamalJavanji.com. So just go to my website, scroll to the bottom, put your email address in that place at the bottom that you can subscribe to our newsletter, and just put your email address in there and click submit, and you'll get on the mailing list. And also, I have a free Facebook group, which I'm going to be doing. I've been doing some live presentations in that group on a weekly basis, but would love for you to be part of that. It's called Uprooting from the Poverty Mindset. It's a free Facebook group. I share a lot of great content in there, and you can join that for free. Just do a search on Facebook called Uprooting from the Poverty Mindset and request to join. You have to answer about 3 questions, and you'll get admitted to that. And also, if you're able, please go and rate and review this podcast on iTunes. That would be, or wherever you listen to your podcast, rate it and review it. That really helps. And we'll go from there. Okay. Thank you guys. Until next time, take care, stay healthy, and boost your immunity against the virulent virus of victimhood. Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.